Here's a look at a recap of your markets on this Friday, the 4th day of April. There definitely was still some market highlights this week around the state and the nation, but boy, to say the markets ended anything other than sour this week, that might just be putting it mildly. Cattle and soybeans, they just plummeted on Friday, no other way to put it, due in part to a lot of knee-jerk reactions to tariff talks and trade, and hopefully that short-term lived, but boy, the market sure had a sour taste Friday, and there is no denying that in any way, shape, or form. We did see a bit of increased demand this week at the cattle auctions for replacement cattle, those 7 to 850 pound heifers suitable to go home, as well as some bred cows and some cow-calf pairs. They sure found some good demand. The feeder market, overall, it was probably steady to about $2 lower. Earlier in the week, there was some stronger markets, but as the week progressed, pressure built up and that pushed the markets lower. Probably didn't see all of the top highs that we did last week. Some of that was also affected by the fact that several reporters did note that the quality this week probably wasn't as good as they'd seen in previous weeks, starting to get a whole lot of new crop calves showing up at the feeder auctions, many of them unweaned or very short weaned with maybe at best 1 round of shots. We'll get into looking at some of our markets now and talk about all the things that happened this week, good, bad, and ugly. At the auction barns around the state this week, going to end up with about 35,000 head of feeder cattle, giving the severe weather and heavy rains that came through the state mid to late week. That's actually a pretty impressive number overall. At Joplin Regional Stockyards, a stickout sale there, 22 head of 512-pound steers sold early in the week at $400 even. The average for those 5 weights statewide, $383. Green Sea Livestock Auction, they sold 43 head of 564-pound steers. Now, these steers were very thin, ready to go to eating grass and gaining weight. They sold at $417.50. Tina Livestock Market, 35 head of 606-pound steers brought $353. Green Sea Livestock Auction, they sold 47 head of 745-pound steers at $319. The average on those light 7s statewide this week at $310. Joplin Regional Stockyards had 42 head of 765-pound steers at $307. Green City had a full load of 802-pound steers that brought $302. Unionville Livestock Market, they sold a full load of 854-pound steers at $289.75. Taking a look at some of the stickout sales of heifers this week, Green Sea sold 25 head of 539-pound heifers at $364. The average on those light 5 weights statewide this week at $338. Kingsville Livestock Auction, they sold a full load of 715-pound heifers. Now, these heifers were going to feed, not returning to the farm. They brought $294. The average on those light 7 weights this week at $282. Green Sea Livestock Auction, they sold 107 766-pound heifers, also headed to feed at $286. Had several 725 to 850-pound heifers that sold around the auction barns this week. As mentioned earlier, these were tagged as replacements at least 3 or 4 different barns for sure. A lot of those heifers were bringing in the $2,300 to $2,500 per head range. Taking a look at box beef cutout values, Choice closed on Friday at $338.45. That actually might have been one of the highlights for the week, gaining $5.63 from last Friday. The Select closed at $317.18. That was down $1.50 compared to last Friday. Volume on Friday, 102 loads of cuts, trimmings, and grinds, and the Choice Select spread setting at $21.27. Negotiated feedlot trade, of course, we saw some trades starting to develop on Thursday afternoon, picked up more of that reported by Friday. It came in late Thursday. And then this morning on Friday, more trades started to develop as of the 2 o'clock cutoff time on Friday. 67,092 head. It's possible there was some trade after the 2 o'clock cutoff, but I would say it's pretty likely that that could be all the trade that we ended up with this week. We'll have to wait till Monday morning, of course, to get those final numbers for sure. When all was said and done, live sales in the South, $1 to $2 lower than last week. In the North, the live sales, $2 to $3 lower. Dress sales, several of those ended up $10 lower than last week. There was a few sales early in that Thursday trade that might have been steady with that $345 from last week, but a whole lot of the sales this week down at least $10. In Texas, as of the 2 o'clock report, 3,984 head, most of those sales at 208. Kansas, 6,571 head, most of those sales at 208. Iowa, 21,067 head. The live sales 210 to 213. Dress sales anywhere from 333 all the way up to 345. Most of them were around that 335 mark. In Nebraska, 22,906 head. Live sales there from 210 to 214, with a lot of them ending up later on the Friday report at 210. Dress sales, they range from 333 all the way up to a few sales earlier in the week at 345. And again, most of those sales were at 335 as well. Taking a look at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, the futures markets, and this is where things got really ugly for the week. Live cattle were 620 to 665 lower. Lean hogs, April was 67 cents higher. All the rest of the contracts, 335 to 460 lower. And then feeder cattle, 750 to 1030 lower for the week. Most of those losses did occur on Friday. April live cattle, 202.62 down 542. June at 198.20 down 650. August 194.70 down 645. Feeder cattle for April, 279.42 down 597. May down 825, 274.87. August at 281.05 down 825. Lean hogs for April unchanged at 87.37. May down 345 at 85.12. June 91.55 down $4. Turning our attention to the grain markets now. At the elevators around the state for the week, soybeans were 31 to 54 lower. Wheat was mixed, 4 lower to 7 higher. Corn, 7 to 18 higher. Corn bids on Friday in the St. Louis region, 478 to 482. Kansas City, 420 to 455. Soybean bids in St. Louis, 987 to 989. Kansas City, 922 to 987. And then wheat bids in St. Louis, 519 to 523, Kansas City at 509. On the board of trade for the week, soybean bids, 43 to 46 cents lower. Wheat was 3 lower to 1 higher. Corn, 4 to 7 higher. Corn contracts, May closed up 2 3/4 on Friday at 460 1/4. July 467 1/4 up 1 3/4. September 439 1/4 up 1/4. All the rest of the contracts fractionally at 2 cents lower as we get on the further out months. Most of those early 2026 contracts. Soybeans, May closed down 34.5, 977. July down 33 1/4, 993. August beans at 991 1/4, down 3 1/4. Wheat contracts, May 7 lower, 529. July 542 3/4, down 7 1/4. September at 557 1/2, down 7 3/4. Soybean meal for May down $4.90 a ton at $283.10. Soybean oil for May, $45.84 a hundredweight, down $1.22. With the Missouri Department of Agriculture, that's a recap of your markets for this week. With the Missouri Department of Agriculture, this is Tony Hancock.